Hello students, we have successfully completed our first chapter and that chapter was motion. In that chapter we studied in detail rest, motion, uniform motion, non-uniform motion, distance and displacement, speed and velocity, acceleration, uniformly accelerated motion and very important graphical proof of equations of motion. Now, today we start our second chapter and this chapter is force and laws of motion. So, what we saw in our previous lesson or we have experienced up to this period that to perform any activity we apply force on any object and we may apply different forces on any object and the effect of forces may be in movement in the direction of movement object, in opposite direction of movement of the object. Resultant of the forces may be zero also. So on the basis of this concept, we shall see mainly two types of forces, and these forces are balanced and unbalanced forces. Unbalanced forces. So before reading this topic, we shall try to understand something. Suppose you are riding on your bicycle and your bicycle starts to move with some velocity or some speed. Now, your any friend starts to pull your bicycle in back direction. Suppose he applies sufficient amount of force, then what happens? Sometimes your cycle stops. So see, you are applying force on the pedal of the cycle moves in forward direction, and at the same time your friend applies force on this bicycle in backward direction. When, suppose this is a road, this is your bicycle or any object. If a force is applied on this object in forward direction and this object starts to move in this direction, at the same time, another force is applied on it. Suppose this force is F1 and another force F2 is applied in back direction. If these two forces, that is F1 is equal to F2 but with negative sign, then what happens? Then resultant becomes zero and there is not any movement in the object or in the cycle. But suppose you are riding on the bicycle or any object is moving in a particular direction, any force F1 is applying on it and the object moves easily. Another force, now F2 is also applied on the same object in the same direction. Then what happens? The speed of object increases. So there are so many different situations on the basis of which we can explain balanced and unbalanced forces. So see, how can we define balanced force? Balanced force. First, we see situation and then we shall define it. So, practical knowledge is more important in comparison to definition. Suppose we have any object and this object is taken at tabletop. We apply a force on this object F1 in forward direction. And at the same time, we apply another force F2 in the opposite direction. If these two forces are equal, F1 and opposite, this negative sign, we know that in first chapter we have read already vector quantity and scalar quantity. Some physical quantities have only magnitude, but some physical quantities have both magnitude and direction. Here Force has both magnitude and direction, so force is a vector quantity. So this negative sign shows the direction of force. So we can say that if two equal and opposite forces act on any object, then this is called balance force, and this is also called zero force because net resultant becomes zero here. So now we can define it easily. So write definition: if two or more equal and opposite, amount should be equal, magnitude should be equal, but direction should be opposite. Equal and opposite forces act on any object, then these forces are called balanced forces. Balanced forces. The second term for balanced forces is also zero force, because here resultant becomes zero. These forces are also called here the net resultant becomes zero. So balanced forces are also called zero force. Zero force. Now see another situation. Now we shall see what is the meaning of unbalanced forces. Unbalanced forces. We shall see different situations. Suppose any object is taken at tabletop or at any surface. We apply a force F1 on this object in forward direction and another force F2, again F3. There may be a lot of forces on this object, but now these forces are not equal. The direction may be opposite, but magnitude is not equal. Then what we see? We see that object moves in the direction of larger force, that is in the direction of net resultant force, and such types of forces are called unbalanced force. So we can define it: if two or more unequal forces, here forces are not equal, two or more unequal forces act on any object in the same direction or opposite direction. Then such types of forces are called unbalanced forces. Unbalanced forces. For example, here, see, here, in the given example, F1 plus F3 is greater than F2. Then what happens? In which direction object will move? Obviously, F1 plus F3 is more in comparison to F2, so the object will move in the direction of the force applying F1 and F3. Here F1 plus F3 is larger in comparison to F2, so after counterbalancing the resultant force will act in forward direction and the object will move in the direction of force F1 and F3. So such types of forces are called unbalanced forces. Now, with the help of this discussion, we can easily say that in our day-to-day practice, we perform a lot of activities. For example, we ride on a bicycle, we ride on bikes, different vehicles are moving, trains are running, and in all these cases, what we see, what is the nature of the force? In every cases, we see the nature of force is unbalanced. Dear students, suppose any bicycle is moving on road, then we apply a force on the pedal of the cycle. Due to this force, cycle moves in forward direction, but at the same time, a force acts. Suppose this is bicycle, we apply force on it, and due to this force, bicycle moves in forward direction, but at the same time, there is a force of friction between wheel of the bicycle and road, and this force acts in backward direction. But the force applied by me on the pedal is larger or greater in comparison to the force of friction applied between tire or wheel and road, so bicycle moves in forward direction. So the movement of any object take place due to unbalanced forces. So these things must be clear. Now we shall see different laws of motions. One by one we shall see first law, second law, third law of motions, its description, practical examples, and its application in our day-to-day life. But before starting this, the concept of this balance and unbalanced force was very much essential. So before concluding my lesson, I gave you some homework. Today's homework is that go through the lesson. You should read your original text. So revise and learn your lesson and explain balanced and unbalanced forces with proper examples. Thank you very much.